This is our top 5 gainers and top 5 losers analysis for Tuesday, March 26, 2019. My name is JC De Guzman. These are the top 5 gainers that I'll be talking about today. First is SOC, APO, Maxis, ATN, FAF or FAF. Now for the top 5 losers, I'll be talking about Wilkin, CHP, PHA, Globe, and PXP. Just as a general rule of thumb when it comes to dividends, if you're going to buy shares of a dividend issuing company before the ex-dividend date and keep those shares at least until the ex-dividend date, then you will receive those dividends. On the other hand, if you're going to buy shares of a dividend issuing company either on or after the ex-dividend date, then those shares will not receive dividends. Now, if you're going to sell shares of a dividend issuing company before the ex-dividend date, then you will not receive dividends. However, if you're going to sell either on or after the ex-dividend date, then you will still receive some dividends. Now, I have checked these 10 stocks a while back, and I found out that out of these 10, only Maxis and FAF has some dividend announcements. So later on, I'm going to tackle those dividend types, okay, just so we can discuss a little bit further about the dividend types of Maxis and FAF. But for the meantime, we will proceed in discussing the chart of the first stock in our list. So we have SOC. SOC Resources Incorporated closed today at 1.42. If I'm not mistaken, I made a recommendation yesterday to rake in or to lock in some profits near 1.11. That wasn't a terrible idea because it was still a gain. Anyway, you can still enter a new position or top up on your position, especially if you did not sell everything at near 1.11. Let's say you just sold a few tranches at 1.11, then that wasn't a bad move at all. So we witnessed another ceiling play on SOC today. And let's just check the percentage change. It's at almost 27%. So the closing price is at 1.42, resistance is at 1.55, support is at 1.31. There was an attempt to break out above 1.55. It did break out, but it did not sustain its position above the resistance at 1.55. Today's strong bullish momentum was also supported with a bullish volume, which is, of course, it's above the 10-day volume average of SOC. Let's take a look at the position of the moving averages. Okay, so SOC is, well, what would you expect? Of course, it will still be moving. It's still moving above the 10-day simple moving average. It's above all of the shorter term and longer term moving averages. And my general piece of advice for SOC is to just either you sell on rally, meaning to say you can sell once it hits a certain or the immediate resistance level of the stock, or your other options just to stick with your trailing stop loss. Anyway, your trailing stop loss is being adjusted in an upward direction every time the price or the stock hits a price higher than its previous price, or the previous or the last price. Okay, now let's take a look at the volume review for SOC. Before that, I just want to make some comments about the net foreign trades of SOC. It's still irrelevant because it's just a small amount of 200,000 pesos worth of net foreign buying. Now the closing price is 1.42. This is almost the middle or the median between the middle or the average between the intraday low and the intraday high. But the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is positioned near, let me just check here, it's positioned near 1.40 all the way to 1.57. I repeat, 1.4 all the way to 1.57. It's quite a wide range for the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades today. So if you are interested to continue trading the name, like what I've mentioned a while back, it's either you follow your trailing stop loss or you sell every time a resistance level is touched by the price of this stock. Okay, remember the resistance is already at 1.55. Okay, so my overall sentiment is neutral to bullish on SOC, and I've already given you my recommendations on what you have to do, especially if you have SOC. Now for the newbie traders, relatively new traders, please take a look at some other stocks, not SOC for now, because this is an extremely high risk stock. It already has a volatility score of 256%. Okay, you can start with stocks that have a volatility score of below 50%. Okay, so that you can learn the ropes of trading without having a heart attack, so to say. Okay, so now let's move on to APO. It's not every day that we see APO in the list of top gainers. Okay, so Anglo Philippine Holdings Corporation closed today at 1.11. Sounds like it looks like a mirror or a copy of SOC last Monday, huh? Do you see any similarity? Yep. And today's green candlestick was supported with the bullish volume that's obviously above the 10-day volume average of APO. Resistance is also at 1.10. Support is at 0.75. Okay, let me take a look at the next resistance above 1.10. It's actually 1.31. Almost like the chart of SOC indeed. So whenever we see a ceiling play, we have to expect that the volatility score and the MACD and any other indicators that use historical data will actually shoot up. It will shoot up erratically. Okay, that's why from a volatility score of 30%, the volatility score of APO is now has shot up to 235%. Very similar to the volatility score and chart of SOC. Now take a look at the RSI. It's not every day that I make some comments regarding the RSI of any stock, but this one caught my attention. The RSI score already hit the overbought level, so there's a possibility for profit taking to denominate the overall sentiment near this resistance area, 1.10 to 1.11. There you go. Later on I'm going to give you my recommendations, but first let's talk about the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades. Meanwhile, the net foreign trade for APO is only a small amount of 37,000 pesos worth of net foreign buying. I just want to remind you that the closing price is 1.11, and that is also its intraday high. And this closing price, which is also the intraday high, gained 16% of today's volume with 284 trades. So let me now nominate a range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades. Cumulatively speaking, that would be 1.10 to 1.11. Now, should APO start below 1.10, there's another range that also got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades, cumulatively speaking, and that would be between 0.93 all the way to 1.02. I repeat, 0.93 all the way to 1.02. My overall sentiment is bullish on APO. However, my recommendation for those who already have a position on APO is to sell in tranches or sell on rally, meaning to say every time it hits a resistance level, consider locking in some profits, either selling everything or you sell a few tranches. And your other option, as always, is to follow your trailing stop loss. Reminder, in our trailing stop loss strategy, we do an upward adjustment every time the price hits a higher price, but we never do a downward adjustment no matter how low the price decreases. Okay, so that's my overall sentiment and recommendation for APO. Do I recommend doing a test buy? Well, take a look at the volume within the first 15 minutes of trading. Not 15 minutes, make it first 3 to 5 minutes tomorrow. If there's an unusually high volume within the first 3 to 5 minutes, then do a test buy. We might see a semi-ceiling play again tomorrow on APO, just like what happened on SOC today. Nonetheless, that's not a guarantee, that's just a probability. So make sure that you are quick to activate your cut loss point or your trailing stop loss should expectations do not match reality. So that's it for APO. Let's talk about Maxis. If I'm not mistaken, Maxis is one of those two stocks for today that have or that have a dividend or that has a dividend announcement. Let's take a look. Yep, there is one. 0.14515 centavo worth of cash dividend per share with an ex-dividend date of March 29, 2019. Or earlier, I already gave you a general piece of advice on what you should know when it comes to buying or selling shares of any dividend issuing company. So you should know by now. You should already know when will you still be entitled to receive cash dividend if you will buy or sell on before or after the ex-dividend date. Now let's go directly to the chart of Maxis. Maxis closed today at 12.96, support is at 11.84, resistance is at 13.9. The closing price of Maxis is already moving above the 10-day simple moving average, and it seems that the moving averages are already aligned in a perfect bullish position. What does that mean? The shorter term moving averages are all above the longer term ones. Okay? But there's a but. The 10 SMA isn't that distant, is not that far from the position of the 50-day simple moving average. So for this perfect bullish alignment to be really convincing, I'd rather want to see Maxis drawing closer, if not breaking out above the resistance at 13.90. Okay. Today's closing price, this green candlestick also came with a towering volume that's above the 10-day volume average of Maxis. Okay, if it's a green candlestick and you see a volume that's above the 10-day volume average, to me that means the ascent in price is more likely to continue. Again, that's not a guarantee, that is only a probability. Okay. MACD remains bullish. I don't see any sign of any bearish conversions being formed. Maxis has a volatility score of 38%, and that gives it a low risk level. For the 2019, let's take a look at the 2019 year-to-date net foreign trade for Maxis. I think it's net foreign selling. Yeah, it is net foreign selling. That's the overall sentiment of foreign investors on Maxis. Let's take a look at the today's net foreign trade. It's 6 million pesos worth of net foreign selling on Maxis, and the range, before the range, let me just remind you that the closing price is at 12.96. 12.96 is closer to the intraday low than to the intraday high. Okay. Now, the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is between, let's check, it's between 12.96 to 13.06. I repeat, 12.96 to 13.06. My overall sentiment on Maxis is bullish. Okay, it's bullish. If you already have a position on Maxis, you are better off following your trailing stop loss. But if you don't have a position in Maxis yet, then you have the option to enter a new position within that range that I've mentioned a while back, especially if the reward to risk ratio that you are seeing right now wins your approval, if you're happy with the reward to risk ratio. Now let's take a look at the next stock in the list. We have ATN. Let me just double check if ATN has any future dividend announcements also. Oh yeah, it has one. So I think it was an FAF that has a dividend announcement. I think that was Maxis and ATN. So ATN has 100% stock dividend, 100% stock dividend, but the ex-dividend date is yet to be announced. TBA means to be announced. Okay, now let's take a look at the chart of ATN. ATN Holdings, or ATN for short, closed today at 1.47. Resistance is at 1.56. Support is at 1.36. Today's green candlestick is above the 10-day simple moving average, but still the 50-day simple moving average is hovering the 10-day simple moving average, meaning to say this is not yet the perfect bullish alignment as far as the alignment of the moving averages is concerned. I think ATN has to register a price, let's see, it has to register a price closer, a little bit closer to 1.56, the resistance, so that the 10 SMA will cross above the 50 SMA. Okay, that would be a golden cross if and when that happens. Okay, today's green candlestick, I repeat, registered a volume that's above the 10-day volume average of ATN. Remember, ATN is not open for foreign it's not open to foreign investors, so we don't have to double check the net foreign trade for ATN. Meanwhile, MACD remains bullish, and ATN still has a moderate, it already has a moderate risk level because of its volatility score of 52%. Now, it closed at 1.47, and that price point is closer to the intraday high than to the intraday low. The range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is between 1.50. Let me repeat that. It's between 1.43 all the way to 1.49. 1.43 to 1.49. My overall sentiment on ATN is bullish. Follow your trailing stop loss. Now, if you don't have a position yet, you have the option to buy in tranches, do a test buy, not at any price, but within that range that I've mentioned, or you have to reevaluate do a new price volume distribution analysis within the first 3 to 5 minutes of trading, so that you can double check if the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades today would still be the exact same range that will appear tomorrow, or the dominant range for tomorrow within the first 3 to 5 minutes, or maybe up until the 15, within the 15 to 30, first 15 to 30 minutes of trading. Okay, you may post a request in our private clients forum. It's actually within the discussion tab here. This is our private clients forum discussion. As soon as you subscribe to Equilist Analytics services, then you already have access to those 3 services: short-term trading, long-term investing, and discussion. I encourage you to take advantage of your access to our private clients forum. Okay, so that's it for ATN. Now let's take a look at the FAF. So that's First Abacus Financial Holdings Incorporated. So just to be sure, let me just check if this has any dividend announcement. So it has none. So there you go. So we're done with the 2 stocks that have future dividend announcements. Okay. So FAF. Let me double check on this one, and then let's plot the support and resistance levels of this stock. Okay, so the closing price of FAF closed today at 0.63. This one, 0.63, and that price is already above the 10-day simple moving average. However, I'd like to mention that I don't like the alignment of the moving averages here. As you can see on this video, the blue line is above the red line is above the green line. This is nothing but a perfect bearish alignment of the moving averages. So that price point placing itself above the 10-day simple moving average is nothing but a consolation price. That's not a major price. So what can make these moving averages, especially the longer term moving averages, positioning themselves below the shorter term moving averages? What can make that happen? The price has to break out above 0.72. I know that's an ambitious ambitious wish, and before it breaks out above 0.72, it has to break out above 0.65 with strong volume first for that ascent in price to be um, more likely to be for it to be sustainable. Okay, today's green candlestick came with a green volume that's above its 10-day volume average. MACD is still in a bearish position, still below the signal line, but I can already see the formation as not so clear, a slight, okay, a slight bullish convergence between the MACD and the signal line. FAF's price must break out above 0.65 for the MACD to cross above the signal line. Anyhow, FAF has a moderate risk level because of its volatility score of 67%. So there's no foreign transaction on FAF today. And did you know that it only got 3 trades today? 3 trades for FAF. I think this is a cross trade. Okay, this is a cross trade. So I'm not going to mention the range that got the biggest volume because there's only one price point that was transacted, that was traded today, and that's 0.63. That's the opening price, the intraday low, the intraday high as well, and the closing price. Okay, my overall sentiment is I'd say neutral. Neutral. I'm not going to give a rating for FAF because of not so attractive trades or market depth on that we saw on FAF's chart. So don't trade the name. I myself am not interested with FAF based on what I just saw on the bid-ask spread. Okay, so that's it for the top 5 gainers for today. Let's move on to the top 5 losers, starting it off with Wilkin. Wilkin Depot. Wilkin closed today at 15.10. Okay, support is at 14.9. Don't look for a historical resistance because there's none. There's only a psychological resistance. So let me zoom this in so I can drag the chart a little bit to the bottom so you can see the psychological resistance is at 17.95, but there's a precursor to that, and here it is, 15.8. That's the historical resistance, courtesy of today's long red candlestick, because if the uptrend continued today, then I cannot cite 15.8 as a historical resistance. Okay, and just because of today's descent in price, I'm able to cite 15.8 as a historical resistance. Okay. Okay. Now, today's red candlestick came with a volume that's above the 10-day volume average. Because of this, it's more likely for the downtrend in price to continue. Well, first it has to test the support at 14.9. 14.9 first, okay, before 12.95. Now, if the downtrend momentum is really that strong and it breaks down below 14.9, then we have another midterm support level here. This one, 14 pesos. Okay. Now, if it breaks down below 14 pesos, that's when will 12.95 come to life. Support level at 12.95. But until then, it has to break down below 2 support levels. Okay, so MACD remains bearish, and Wilkin has a risk level of its low risk stock because of its historical volatility score of 30%. 2019 year to date net foreign sentiment is net foreign buying. Okay, now let's take a look at today's net foreign transaction. It's 4 million pesos worth of net foreign selling. The closing price, let me just remind you, is 15.10. 15.10 is closer to the intraday low than to the intraday high. So the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is between 15.10 all the way to 15.20. 15.10 to 15.20. My overall sentiment on Wilkin is bearish. My suggestion is that you sell once your trailing stop loss is hit. If you don't have a position in Wilkin, don't hurry. Okay, monitor the support near 14.9. If you still see a strong downtrend volume at 14.9, don't buy just yet. You continue monitoring, you might just catch a price lower than 14.90. Okay, if the red candle, if and only if you see a red candlestick that has a volume that's below the 10-day volume average, that's when you should only consider doing a test buy. Because when that happens, if it's a red candlestick and volume is below the 10-day volume average, that means to say the decided sellers may have already sold everything that they would want to sell. So it's an exhaustion of selling pressure, so to speak. Okay? All right. Okay, let's move on to, okay, what did I press? Okay, now let's move on to the next stock in the list. We have CHP. Okay, CHP closed today at 2.62. Resistance is at 2.74. Actually, we can adjust this one all the way to 2.86. Or we can put it between 2.86 to 2.88. So that's the resistance. Support is at 2.21. Today's red candlestick is already moving below the 10-day simple moving average, and it also came with a volume that's above the 10-day volume average. Oh no, MACD already registered a death cross, meaning to say it already crossed below the signal line. That's another point for the bears. Okay, historical volatility is at 66%, meaning to say CHP has a moderate risk level. Okay. The 2019 year-to-date net foreign sentiment is bearish. It's a net foreign selling for 2019 year-to-date. Now, for today's net foreign trade, it's 3 million pesos worth of net foreign selling. The closing price of 2.62 is closer to the intraday low than to the intraday high. The range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is printed near 2.6 all the way to 2.62. 2.6 to 2.62. My overall sentiment on CHP is bearish. Use your trailing stop loss if the price is not if the price is already below, but even before or once the price hits your trailing stop loss, make sure you sell. Okay, you sell. Come what may, you sell. Because it doesn't make sense not selling. It doesn't make sense putting in some time calculating your trailing stop loss only to ignore it once it hits, right? It doesn't make sense to snub your trailing stop loss. Now, if you don't have a position on CHP just yet, don't hurry. Do not hurry. Try to wait between. Let me draw a rectangle here. Wait for the price to enter this territory between 2.45 to 2.2. Okay, wait for the price to enter that, to retrace that price range before you consider doing a test buy. Okay, I'm not saying you should already buy once the price enters below 2.45. What I said is you have to reevaluate the situation. If you see any warrant or any data-driven catalyst or data-driven reason for you to consider doing a test buy. Okay. All right. So CHP. Now that's my recommendation if you don't have a position on CHP yet. Now let's move on to the next stock in the list. We have PHA. PHA closed today at 1.05. It's already 2 flux below the previous support at 1.07, which is now unfortunately acting as the new resistance. So that makes 0.85 as its immediate support. Okay, the red candlestick is already moving below the 50 and the 10-day simple moving average. Today's red candlestick came with a price that's almost equal to its 10-day volume average, meaning to say I can see a probability for the price to bounce away from this level, to treat or to respect the support at 1.07, between 1.07 to 1.05. There's a probability, okay? That's just a probability, not a guarantee, okay? Now, uh, given that glimpse of hope for a rebound, probability for a rebound, unfortunately, MACD still does not give us any sign for a bullish convergence with the signal line. It seems that it's still moving. Visually speaking, it's still moving in a downtrend channel away from the signal line. That's a bearish signal. Anyway, PHA has a high risk level because of its historical volatility score of 92%. Okay, I just want to emphasize this one regarding the price. If the price continues to move below 1.05 or 1.07 and volume remains close, if not higher than the 10-day volume average, then PHA traders might get tired of trying to revive the price above 1.07. When that happens, the price might just retrace to the previous support at 0.85. Today's net foreign trade is 730,000 pesos worth of net foreign selling. The closing price of 1.05 is one fluctuation closer or one fluctuation away from the intraday low. So the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is between 1.04 to 1.08. 1.04 to 1.08. My overall sentiment on PHA is bearish. Yeah. Despite that initial sentiment that I mentioned a while back for the possibility for a rebound between 1.05 to 1.07, my overall sentiment is still bearish on PHA. So use your trailing stop loss if you already have PHA. If you don't have a position on this stock yet, don't enter just yet. Be on a wait and see mode. Okay, be on a wait and see mode between 1.5 to 0.85. Okay, now let's move on to Globe Telecom. Globe, let me just plot the support and resistance of this stock. Okay, Globe closed today at 1,947 pesos a piece. Resistance is at 2,000 pesos. Support is at 1,849 pesos per share. So there have been some attempts to break out above the 2,000 level in the past few days, beginning last week, which began last week. It has begun last week, okay? So I think Globe holders or traders or investors their attempt did not really, they got tired. They got tired of testing the resistance at 2,000. That's why they retreated today. Okay, they retreated today. So this price is at the brink of closing below the 10-day simple moving average, although it's obviously already below the 50 SMA. So it's bearish in the medium term. Okay, now this intersection between the 10 SMA and the 200-day SMA is an important line. It's also a mid-term support level. It's at 1,935 pesos per share. If Globe breaks down below 1,935, especially if it comes with volume above the 10-day volume average, then it might just continue its direction all the way to 1,850, the support line here. Okay, so watch out for that, for those conditions that I've mentioned. Okay. For the 2019 year-to-date net foreign trade, it's net foreign selling for Globe. Globe has a historical volatility score of 40%. That's a low risk level. Okay, And today's red candlestick came with a volume that's below, slightly above 50% of today's 10-day volume average. I did not say above the 10-day volume average, huh? I said it's slightly above the 50% of today's 50% of the 10-day volume average. Means to say it's below the 10-day volume average, but slightly above the 50% of the 10-day volume average. I hope I made myself clear to that. Okay. Now, today's net foreign trade is 13 million pesos worth of net foreign buying, but it wasn't enough to change the color of the green of the candlestick from red to green. The closing price of 1,947 is closer to the intraday low than to the intraday high. Okay, so the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is between 1,947 all the way to 1,950. Okay, 1947 to 1950. My overall sentiment on Globe is bearish. Okay, if you don't have a position, and if you have a position, you know the drill. Follow your trailing stop loss. If you don't have a trailing stop loss, because it's only now that you've heard the phrase trailing stop loss, this is how you should do it. If your average price is less than the current price, you calculate your trailing stop loss from the current price. For example, if your percentage of risk tolerance is 5%, what you should do is you get 5% below the current price. That's your trailing stop loss, given that condition that I've cited. Okay. Now, if your average price is higher, a while back it's lower. Now, if your average price is higher than the current price, make sure that you calculate your trailing stop loss from your average price. If you have a percentage risk of 5%, make sure that you get 5% below your average price, and that should be your trailing stop loss. You got it? I do hope you got it. Now, if you don't have a position on Globe just yet, monitor the price near 1935 or lower if the downtrend continues. Okay? Okay, now let's talk about the last stock for today. We have PXP. Okay, so PXP closed today at 13.02. It already broke down below the previous support at 13.63. That previous support is now acting as its immediate resistance. So the major support is actually at 9.84. The major support is actually at 9.84, but I've drawn a line, a midterm support line at 11.54. So that's the precursor to 9.84. Okay, that's the midterm support. Now, today's red candlestick came with a strong bearish volume that's above the 10-day volume average of PXP. It has been this case for the past 3 trading days, so it's not quite surprising for PXP to register 3 candlesticks in a row. Okay, MACD remains bearish. Okay, MACD remains bearish. Now, the 2019 net foreign sentiment is a net foreign selling for PXP. PXP has a low risk level with its 27% historical volatility score. Okay, there's a possibility for PXP to translate the midterm support at 11.54 as a rebounding area, a rebounding zone, or this one here around 12.6. Okay, 12.6. I think by the time if just in case it continues to go down and it hits 12.6, I think by that time RSI will have already hit the oversold territory, 12.6. So there you go for PXP. Now, for today's net foreign trade, it registered 1 million pesos worth of net foreign selling, and this closing price of 13.02 is actually its intraday low. So the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is between 13.02 to 13.12. 13.02 to 13.12. My overall sentiment on PXP is bearish given this relatively high volume. And my recommendation for those who have PXP is, as usual, respect your trailing stop loss. If you don't have a position yet, then don't buy just yet. Make sure that you continue observing the downtrend direction of the price. If you see that the downtrend volume is relaxing a bit once it touches 12.50 to 12.6, then you evaluate if the downtrend momentum seems to have stopped between 12.5 to 12.60, then you may then entertain the idea of doing a test buy. But if the price already hits 12.5 or 12.60 and it seems that the downward momentum has not weakened a bit, then you will have to adjust your waiting area near 11.5. Okay, this support here, 11.5 to 11.54. There you go for my overall sentiment and recommendations for PXP. So for today, you've heard my analysis, recommendations, and trade setups for SOC, APO, Maxis, ATN, FAF, Wilcon, PHP, PHA, CHP rather, PHA, Globe, and PXP. This is the top 5 gainers and top 5 losers analysis for Tuesday, March 26, 2019. My name is JC De Guzman. Have a great day.